German Chancellor Angela Merkel is on a farewell trip to Israel before she leaves office. After a morning meeting with Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, the German leader met with the Israeli cabinet. The trip caps Merkel's 16 years in power, which saw the Chancellor deepen relations with the Jewish nation-state. With Merkel's impending departure, Israel is bracing for a new chapter in the relationship. Well, speaking at the start of her visit, Angela Merkel said she finds the progress Israel and Germany have made particularly moving.
It is undeniable, and I want to emphasize that here, that it is a stroke of luck to which Israel has contributed very, very much, that Germany can sit here at the same table with you today. Because the story of the Shoah is, of course, a singular event for which we continue to bear responsibility in every phase of history, including in the future. We are now in a transition phase where there will soon be no witnesses left, which is why we have to be aware that we always keep this part of our sad and terrible history in our hearts and minds in order to simply draw the right lessons for the future. And Germany accepts this responsibility.
DW's Tanya Kramer is in Jerusalem covering the visit. She joins us now. Tanya, you're at that hotel where Angela Merkel is meeting and that's all taking place today. What more can you tell us? What's going on there?
Well, we just heard Chancellor Merkel there. That was at the beginning of this cabinet meeting, and that is quite unusual here. The whole Israeli cabinet and, of course, Israel's Prime Minister Naftali Bennett and also the alternate Prime Minister Yair Lapid and the whole set of ministers here came to see Angela Merkel and to hold this weekly cabinet meeting that's usually taking place every Sunday here at the hotel. That is to honor her and in respect of her. That's what the Prime Minister's office stated before. Now, we heard Naftali Bennett saying that he acknowledged again that Chancellor Angela Merkel, really put a focus in her 16 years of office on German-Israeli relations. He also mentioned again that Germany is, in that sense, not neutral. He referred to Angela Merkel's what she said a couple of years ago in a speech here in front of the Knesset, that it is a core national interest. Israel's security is a core national interest, and he also referred to politics of today, how important it is to find a common line against Iran and what is happening with the nuclear deal.
Now, as we've been saying, this is Merkel's final visit to Israel in her role as Chancellor. Now, we want to keep talking about the significance of that in a moment, but first let's have a look at the German-Israeli ties during the Merkel era.
It's been 56 years since Germany and Israel formally established diplomatic relations. In the following decades, ties between the two countries have slowly become closer. But the psychological scars of the past still run deep. March 2008 saw a landmark moment when Chancellor Angela Merkel became the first Chancellor to address the Knesset, Israel's parliament, in German. Every federal government and every Chancellor before me has been committed to Israel's security because of our special historical responsibility. This historical responsibility is part of my country's raison d'être. Merkel's final visit as Chancellor this week will be her 8th, more than any of her predecessors.
There was an additional dimension to Angela Merkel. People loved her and felt for her. There was something about her attitude, the way that she addressed herself to Israel and to the problems that Israel had to deal with.
For 12 of her 16 years as Chancellor, former Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was her counterpart. But the smiles for the cameras often faded away behind closed doors. Germany continues to insist on a two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but the likelihood of that happening has shrunk dramatically. One major reason, the expanding Jewish settlements in the occupied West Bank, which Germany deems illegal under international law.
Palestine always appreciates, really, the solid position that has been taken by Germany, by the Chancellor, and by her predecessors, who all the time called for ending occupation, a two-state solution.
Still, Germany has stuck by Israel's side. Most recently, during a violent flare-up in the conflict between Israel and Gaza earlier this year, which saw rockets fired by Hamas and Israel. This rocket fire must stop immediately. The German government stands by Israel's right to act in self-defense against these attacks. With Merkel's impending departure as Chancellor comes a new chapter. But regardless of who fills Merkel's shoes, relations with Israel will remain as unique and complicated as ever.
Tanya, a deep and colourful history there between Merkel and Israel. What can we make of her final visit there? What's so important about it?
I mean, on the one hand, it is, of course, a symbolic visit, but I think it was very important for the German Chancellor to come here again. I mean, originally this visit was scheduled for the end of August, just before the German elections, and then they had to postpone it or cancel it at the last minute because of events in Afghanistan. Now it was rescheduled, and I think she made it clear again today when she spoke that it's very important for her to hand over, you know, this very special relationship between the two countries because of its shared past, because of the Holocaust, over to hand it over now to the next incoming German government and the next Chancellor. And I think this is also the idea here in Israel. There is not the expectation that there will be, you know, major policy decisions being taken here, but it's very important for the Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett and the whole government here that she's here. And maybe it's fair to say, I mean, he cleared his whole schedule for her, and they will be visiting this afternoon together Yad Vashem, Israel's Holocaust Memorial, and then be with her for the rest of the day.
All right, Tanya, thanks very much for that. DW's Tanya Kramer in Jerusalem.